Let's bring in tonight's Legal Eagles, criminal defense attorneys Bob Bianchi and Brian Claypool. I think Brian is with us. We might be having a little trouble with Bob. Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Shannon.
Bob,
Hi.
are you there? Okay. Hey, great to have you, Brian. Okay, so let's start with you. We're looking at these all across the country. There have been, Sean Feucht has been having these praise and worship things where thousands of people show up. Some of the cities are really mad. They say he's not getting a permit. Here's what New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell said on Monday. While this was under the guise of a religious activity or event, we know it put our people in danger. That is Exhibit A tonight, Brian.
Well, Shannon, look, this debate about the COVID-19 restrictions reminds me of the infamous O.J. Simpson trial. Remember that with the glove, and he's trying it on and the glove didn't fit and we must acquit? Well, that applies here. We can't have a one glove all fit solution to all of these protests, schools, restaurants, and here demonstrations. One size doesn't fit all. And here's why it doesn't fit here. Because first of all, we have to define what this is. This was a demonstration. It wasn't a concert. It wasn't a festival. This was a lawful assembly, a protest under the First Amendment. That doesn't require a permit, last time I checked, Shannon. And then secondly, the Equal Protection Clause applies here. What's that? Well, that means state and local governments have to treat all groups equally. Well, last time I checked, all these protests that happened with racial injustice, and most recently, we had a bunch of not protests, but people cheering the Joe Biden victory. I don't think they went out and got a permit, did they? Well, same here. I don't think that Let Us Worship needs to get a permit. They need to be treated equally. And I really feel like if Let Us Worship was not in front of this organization, they might not have needed a permit.
Okay, so Bob, we have seen, as Brian talked about, the streets filled with thousands, tens of thousands of people for all different kinds of protests, and certainly for the celebrations last weekend, people celebrating the race being called for Joe Biden. We saw some of these Democratic leaders who were telling the rest of us not to have Thanksgiving out there among them. Some people had masks on, some people did not have masks on. Here's what Sean Feucht told us about this whole thing when he joined us on Fox News at night.
We're just in such a divisive time right now, not only just politically, but we have the pandemic. We have churches closing down across America. And, this is the hour where the church has the answers to bring unity, to bring hope, to bring life.
Okay, Bob, that is our Exhibit B. So why, for some groups to be out there sharing their message, but not this kind of group?
Shannon, what you guys are bringing up is a fair point, what Brian is saying. You can't treat people differently, but the laws aren't different. It's the people that are executing the laws that are doing things different. It's a little bit of an apples and an orange thing. Look, the law is the law, and many governments have these, you must get a permit, and you must follow the health safety recommendations of that town. And if you don't, you could be subjected to being fined. So this group is going around, no masks, were jammed together where they could have socially distanced but chose not to do it. And this particular government entities, actually 3 of them, said you didn't apply for the permit and we're going to sanction you. Do I agree with you guys in the sense that it should apply if you're going to enforce the laws in one place, you should enforce the laws in the other? Well, as a former prosecutor, I can tell you, we don't always enforce all the laws, but I understand the double standard you're bringing out. Nevertheless, that is not, Brian, who I love and is a great lawyer, knows. It's never a defense to go into court and say they violated, but everybody violates it in other places. That will get shot down in a courtroom. I think these people are going to wind up getting fined.
Okay, Rolling Stone is our Exhibit C, says this: calling it a protest the same way coronavirus alum President Trump does to host rallies during a pandemic may have been Feucht's loophole for positioning his potentially super spreading event as legal, but Nashville's Metro Public Health Department was not pleased. Brian, they say these could be super spreader events and they don't want it on their territory.
Well, look, all these protests we saw, during the entire pandemic, Shannon, are super spreader events. I mean, I watched the CMA Awards, the Country Music Awards the other night, and there were 400 people in an auditorium. They weren't wearing masks, and there was a big controversy over that as well. I mean, where does it end? I mean, here, just to summarize real quick again, there's a First Amendment right to demonstrate. This is a demonstration. And I think what we're seeing happen here is we're seeing a little bit of discrimination against a Christian Let Us Worship group. I think that's really what's happening here.
Okay,
Shannon.
final word to you. Final word to you, Bob. As we keep in mind the comments from Justice Alito last night saying he's really worried. He says there's no blackjack clause, there's no craps clause in the Constitution. Casinos are open, but there is a religious freedom clause in the Constitution, and by his estimation, it's being threatened.
You know, Shannon, I love that you brought that up. That was in Nevada, where they clearly discriminated against religious groups because they allowed a casino to have 50% capacity, but a church or a place of worship could only have 50 people, irrespective of how large it was. That is an example where the government actually cut out religious people, and you know I was on your show indicating to me that was unconstitutional. This law, though, however, that we're talking about, is applied evenly to every group, religious or not.
Okay. Bob and Brian, we appreciate your time tonight. We're going to send it to the folks at home because they are the jury. Let us know what you think. Thank you both.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.